I'm the stranger.
And I'm the thing.
And this is Stranger Things Season 4.
It has been over a year since Netflix released Season 3 of Stranger Things, and ever since, fans have been eagerly awaiting the release of Season 4.
They want answers to questions like, what happened to Hopper? And where's the Mind Flayer now? And will this season bring me any level of emotional fulfillment?
Production has now officially started on Season 4.
Which it probably shouldn't have, because there's a pandemic.
Yeah, they shouldn't be filming things, but they are.
But people will still need to wait like a year to find out what happens in this next season. But we don't.
Because we have brain disorders, gay determination, and so much free time on our hands right now.
And also a very personal connection to the source material because we met working in an ice cream parlor.
So we went ahead and wrote Season 4 of Stranger Things.
You're welcome. We open on Will Byers, who is now 15 and has a better haircut, at his new school, and it's gym class, and they're playing soccer, and he's not very good at it, but he's trying to participate, and he's looking kind of longingly at all the other boys who are kicking the ball around and having fun, and they just don't pass it to him, because he's not good at it. And all the boys are running back to the locker room, and one of them stops and is like, "Hey, Will, good game, you're getting better." And Will goes, "Thanks." Then we cut to the next scene.
So it's after school. There's a whole group of like little weird girls surrounding Elle who think she's the coolest girl in the world. And they're very sad to be saying goodbye to her because this is the last day before spring break and they're not gonna see each other this whole week. No one's saying goodbye to Will, he's just there. Joyce picks them both up and she and Elle talk for a little bit about how excited they are because Elle gets to go home and see Max and see all their friends because they're going back to Hawkins for spring break. And Will is just sitting in the back kind of quietly. Joyce asks if he's okay, if there's anything wrong, and he's like, "No, I'm just tired, it's fine, don't worry about it." He looks out the window though and sees the boy from before.
They lock eyes, and the boy offers him a slight smile before skateboarding into the distance.
And Will just looks back to the front of the car.
We cut to Jonathan at art school that we will never give a name. And he is in his photography class, and he's very anxious because today is the last day before spring break, and he and his project partner have to turn in their project. And he's really nervous because he doesn't think that his project has turned out okay, because the project was to take pictures of each other.
It's portraiture.
It's portraiture.
Yeah, but the boy's like, "No, Jonathan, you're such a good photographer. These pictures came out so good. Like, you really made me look amazing in these pictures. Do you want to see the pictures I took of you?" So he starts pulling out all these pictures of Jonathan, and he's like, "Wow, yeah, Jonathan, your eyes are really sparkling in this one. It's so much easier when you have a beautiful model to take pictures of." And Jonathan's like, "Oh, yeah, okay." And then he grabs his folder of pictures, runs up to the teacher's desk, drops them, and is like, "Okay, I gotta go." But before he leaves, the boy, who I would like to fan cast as Keenan Longsdale.
And I have realistically Duffer casted as Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, I don't want it to be Timothy Chalamet, but it would be Timothy Chalamet. He's like, "Oh, Jonathan, wait, are you going to the party tonight?" And Jonathan's like, maybe. And then just kind of runs out of there, back to his dorm room, where
he collapses face first onto the bed, and from under his pillow pulls out a very tender photograph of photography boy that was too tender to put in the portfolio. This one's just for him.
Uh-huh. Now, cut to Hawkins, where at Hawkins High,
It's the last day before spring break. It's standardized.
Yeah, it's just standardized. Where Steve is picking up Robin. So she gets in his car and she starts telling him about her last day at school, and they're listening to music and it's fun and they're hanging out. They get to Robin's parents' house. He stops the car and she says, "Hey, thanks for giving me a ride." And he says, "It was on the way." So she gets out, closes the door, goes up to the front door, walks inside. Then Steve gets out of the car, walks to the garage, opens the garage door very, very slowly, goes inside, and we realize that he is living in Robin's parents' garage.
Just our living situation.
Yeah, that's how we're living right now. We go back to Joyce, who's dropping off Elle at Max's mom's house, which is now a very chill place to be because Max's mom divorced her shithead husband.
After his shithead son died.
Yeah, everything's real chill and nothing bad happens there now. Then we cut over to the Wheelers' house where Mike is freaking out.
Sorry, if you haven't made your bed, throw it away. It's too late to make it now. Company is coming. Get rid of the couches. We can't let people know we sat.
So he's freaking out because Will is 5 minutes late.
And everything has to be perfect when Will gets here.
Yeah, because that's his best friend and he hasn't seen him in so long.
We don't specify how long, because I don't understand the timeline of this show.
Yeah, whatever. It's spring break.
It's spring break!
Spring break! So Will gets there, he and Mike run off, go to slumber party, spring break stuff. Joyce starts talking to Mike's weird mom about how it's so nice that she can take Will for the week because Joyce has to go run an errand, an unspecified errand, and she will pick Will up when she's done with her errand. We cut back to Jonathan, who's hyping himself up for a cool art school party.
It's just on the front porch like, okay, all right, you can do this.
Yeah.
It's just a party. And he goes inside and it's a cool art school party.
Yeah, everyone has like dyed hair and piercings and there's like cool alternative 80s music playing and everyone's smoking.
Just lounging on the couch with plumes of smoke.
So he walks through and like he knows a lot of people, but he doesn't really have any like friends at school. So he's just kind of like saying hi to people and then they'll keep talking to whoever they are talking to. But then he sees the photography class boy who in class was kind of nondescript and just kind of a boy. He was there, but now he's at a party and he's more laid back and he's a little looser and he's wearing a gay little outfit, like a cool flamboyant shirt, and like maybe he has an earring in now. And he's like a few drinks in, so he's like, "Oh, Jonathan, yeah, come over here. Let's talk about photography class. Wow, you did so good on that project." And Jonathan's like, "Yeah, cool, photography," because he's not picking up on any of the vibes that are happening.
He's giving off his own vibes.
So they start talking and they're like very much flirting, but Jonathan does not know that they're flirting. So they're talking and they keep kind of getting closer, and the boy's like, "Wow, yeah, it was so much easier to make good pictures with such an amazing model." And Jonathan's just like, "Yeah, cool, that's helpful for photography. You did good too." And then they almost kiss. They get so close. And then Jonathan's like, "Got a blast." And he just books it, just runs out of there, because that's just how he leaves rooms this season.
Yep, every single time. If we forget to mention it, just assume that that's what he's saying.
Yeah, so he just runs out of there, grabs his car keys, gets in the car, and just starts driving. He has not packed a bag. We don't know where he's going. He's just got to leave the state. He cannot be there anymore. There's too much happening.
I think at some point as he's going down the road, we see like an Indiana this many miles.
Yeah, probably.
We cut to
Steve and Robin in Robin's parents' garage, getting so stoned together.
They're getting ready to watch Indiana Jones, the
Yes.
second one. I would like to thank my boyfriend for telling me that that's the bad one and that's the one I should use in this video. And then he wanted to talk to me about why it was bad, and I said, no, I don't care.
There's a knock on the garage door. It's pizza. Steve immediately straightens up and is like, ooh, starts like fixing his hair, trying not to look high. Robin's just behind him, looking very high. Grabs the garage door opener.
The door opens so slowly, and we pan with it from the feet to the face of the pizza delivery boy, and hot boy music plays, and we reveal KJ Appa.
but blonde.
Yeah. Also, he doesn't have any lines because we don't have money to pay him.
Yeah. So Steve just gives him the money and stuff, takes the pizza, and is just kind of like...
And the guy who has seen this 5 times tonight is just like, eh, and leaves.
Mhm.
And as he leaves, Steve stands there perfectly still, looking after him as the garage door closes so slowly. And the minute it hits the ground,
turns around like, all right, pizza time, yeah. And Robin's just like, so that was weird. Okay.
we follow Pizza Boy KJ Appa in a short montage of him delivering pizzas to various residents of the town who we recognize.
We have like Mr. Clark, Dustin's mom.
We see him stop by at Max's house, and Elle and Max come out all giggly in their sleepover outfits with like a million little braids in, and they take their pizza. Claire's house, and Erica opens the door, and then Lucas comes and shoves her aside, and then he and Dustin take the pizza and run back.
He goes to Mike's house, so Mike and Will answer the door, and like behind them we see Karen Wheeler just kind of peek around a corner. She's weirdly into teenage boys. Mike notices her and is like, God, Mom, no. Grabs the pizza, closes the door, kind of continue on with Pizza Delivery Boy to the end of his shift. So now it's early morning and he's leaving to go home, so he's driving to like the outskirts of town.
That's where he lives.
That's where he lives. And while he's driving, he passes another car. As they pass, we jump into that car, and it's Jonathan. And he's looking rough. He has very clearly been driving all night. He looks like he's on speed or something. He looks crazy. He drives to the Wheeler's house, parks down the street, grabs some pebbles, goes over to Nancy's window and starts throwing them until her light turns on. She like peeks out in her pajamas, and she's like, Jonathan, what are you doing here? And he says, Nancy, we need to talk. Cut to Joyce, who's in an airport. It's an airport. It's in Texas or something. Don't worry about it.
Whichever one we pick, we're gonna film it at the other one anyway.
So she's at baggage claim. Through the windows behind her, you can see the sun rising. There's an announcement over the speakers that one of the flights has just come in. She's like looking through the people, trying to find someone until she sees who she's looking for. Cut to Hopper. Standing there, he's got a duffel bag over his shoulder, he looks at her and he grins. Cut to black, end of episode.
Okay.
It's finally morning, which means that Nancy has finally agreed to come downstairs from her house and go join Jonathan in his car. And he's real scrunched up in the front seat, like he has slept rough for the 2 hours that he's actually gotten to sleep. The minute she gets into the car, he just launches into this thing about like how he's been having these feelings and he doesn't understand and he just doesn't know what they're all about, but he felt like he had to tell her because they're in love. And she's like, Jonathan, you're gay. And he's like, no, I can't be gay. I can't be gay. She's like, no, you're clearly and obviously gay.
And he goes, you know what? I'm gonna prove how not gay I am with the power of investigative journalism.
And he kicks her out of the car.
And
they will not really interact again for the rest of the season.
Because this season, Nancy gets her own plot line, which is that while everyone else is finding out they're an MLM, she's joining an MLM, a multi-level marketing scheme. She works for Mary Kay now, and whenever we cut back to her, she's making business calls and knocking on people's doors and selling them makeup and trying to get them wrapped up in her pyramid scheme.
This is what feminism needed, not whatever happened last season.
Yeah, this is real feminism.
It is important to note that at no point does Jonathan know or realize that his younger brother is asleep upstairs in her house.
Yeah, he does not know that Will's in town at all. Nancy goes back to the house, opens the door. The boys come tumbling out. They run down the street in the opposite direction of Jonathan's car.
Because he doesn't know.
Yeah. So they run off to go meet their friends. The whole gang, all together again. Mike, Will, Dustin, Lucas, Max, and Elle. That's everyone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're all together. They're hanging out. They're running around town. They're best friends and they love each other. At one point, they pass by the graveyard and they make a quick stop to go spit on Billy's grave.
This is, we find out it's become a common pastime for the children and the adults in town. It's a fun place to go and hang out and throw eggs or spit or kick it a little bit.
Yeah. Billy's grave is the first gender-neutral bathroom in Hawkins, Indiana.
And this is all watched over and approved of by the groundskeeper, who gives them a friendly wave as they come by.
We have fan cast him as Tyler Hoechlin.
Hochlin?
Coachella. Tyler Coachella. And his character is legally distinct from Derek Hale. It's not just Derek Hale, it's legally distinct.
We cut back to Joyce and Hopper. They got on the road very quickly because he didn't have any luggage, just this one big duffel bag. About 30 minutes away from the airport, the car breaks down and they immediately get into a very big fight about it. Because he thinks that it's because she drove all night and then kept driving, and she says that he's the one who asked her to pick him up from the airport. And we never go into when that happened or how that happened. The story starts the minute his feet hit the ground in Texas. They fight for a bit, and she's like, oh, we should call a mechanic. But he's a strong man, so he forbids this.
But she figures she's not gonna call a mechanic since he won't let her. She could call someone else, though, to help them out. So she goes to the nearest payphone and she starts putting in all of her loose change and just starts calling anyone she can think of. She's calling the Wheeler's house. She's calling Mr. Clark. She's calling anyone. She even calls the secret government number and gives them the passcode and stuff. And they're like, oh my God, is it the Mind Flayer? Is it happening again? And she's like,
we're in Texas.
Our car broke down. Can you guys come help us? And they're just like, ma'am, please never call this number again. I don't care if the Mind Flayer comes back. Just don't call us again. We shouldn't have given you this number.
And in the background, we see Hopper continuing to try to work on this car, which mostly involves a lot of kicking at it and trying to wrestle it into submission, like wrestling a gator. How I think men interact with cars. I'm not on T yet, I don't know.
Cut to the video store where Steve and Robin still work together. They're stocking shelves, there's music playing, it's another kind of fun little interaction between them. They're bantering and stuff.
They're picking out what movie they're gonna watch tonight.
Yeah.
And we come to realize that last night, where they got really stoned and watched a movie and ordered pizza, is what they do pretty much every night, because they're best friends.
Yeah, they're best friends.
The manager is there and he hates them both now.
Steve's stocking action movies, and it takes him a little bit longer than it does most movies. He's kind of picking things up and going, oh, yeah, there's a lot of muscly, oiled up men on the covers, and he's a little into it. And Robin's just kind of watching this like, yeah, okay, there's something happening here. All right.
She's collecting evidence.
The kids burst in, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna pick out movies because we're having a slumber party tonight. And they're like, yeah, awesome. We love you guys. Yeah, Will's back in town. This is great.
And Dustin's like, hey, Steve, are we still on for tomorrow? And Steve's
like, you know it, buddy.
Because they're best friends.
Yeah, they're best friends. The manager kind of pops out and is like, hey, Steve, you can't keep letting this 13-year-old just loiter in the store all the time. And Dustin's like, first of all, I'm 15 and I'm a paying customer.
And the manager points out that Steve has never made him pay for a movie in his life. At which point Dustin gets very offended, takes their stack of sleepover movies, and exits without paying. We cut back to Joyce and Hopper has finally declared the car unfixable. It's getting pretty late and he's just slumped across the hood of the car, covered in grease. I think at this point he takes off his fun patterned grease-covered shirt and then goes into his duffel bag and replaces it with an equally fun patterned clean shirt. And we are to realize that this duffel bag has about 50 fun patterned shirts and nothing else. He has the socks and pants and underwear that he has on,
as well as the cowboy boots he's wearing. He is wearing cowboy boots.
Very important. And then 50 shirts.
Nothing else.
Not a toothbrush. So after he declares the car unfixable, they're down to their last coin. They know who they have to call.
They look at each other and they sigh.
And they both cram themselves into the little phone booth.
And they go, hey, we need some help. And we cut to Murray.
In an unidentified location with a lot of bubbling sounds.
And he says, I'll be there in 20 minutes.
We cut to Chloe's favorite part.
Yes. So, Jonathan just kind of crawls back to the Wheeler's house to beg Nancy to just sleep on her floor tonight.
He still does not know his younger brother is sleeping on Mike's floor.
Because he has realized that he no longer has a house in Hawkins, and he has nowhere to sleep. And she says, no, get out of here. So he slinks off to go try to find somewhere else to sleep. He goes to like a cardboard box behind a dumpster and peeks in, but oh no, there's a rabid raccoon already living there who hisses at him. He goes to the old playground and he tries to climb in the twisty slide, but oh no, there's a rabid raccoon already living there who hisses at him. He goes to Castle Byers, which is now just like this decaying little husk of like a fort, and he crawls in, but oh no, there's a rabid raccoon already living there and it hisses at him. Finally, he remembers Hopper's cabin, which is still just out there in the woods. So he goes in there, and yay, it's free. There's nothing there.
We cut back outside to a raccoon who's looking for a place to stay the night. And he remembers Hopper's cabin. So he's going over there, and he wiggles his way in through the door, and he sees Jonathan, a rabid raccoon, who hisses at him. And then he scurries off into the night.
So the kids have been having their movie night. It's winding down now. Lucas and Dustin are just like slumped over, drooling, because they just passed out halfway through the movie. Max and Elle are going back to Max's house to continue their slumber party.
It's a week-long party, baby.
Yeah, it's a week-long party, baby. Spring break. Yeah. So Mike and Will set up their sleeping bags. They put them right next to each other because they're best friends, and they lay down, and it's very cozy. The only light is just the TV that's still flickering. But Will is still just feeling kind of weird and anxious. All day he's been just like a little bit off. And Mike says, hey, what's up with you? Do you not like being here? Do you like your new school better? Do you have better friends than us now or something? And Will finally opens up to him and says, no, I'm just afraid because I think the Mind Flayer is back. And Mike's like, oh my God, Will, tell me what's happening. Tell me all about it. So Will starts explaining about how lately he's been feeling those like Mind Flayer goosebumps, but he feels them all the time at random times, like when he's at school or when he's at the arcade or when he's watching Teen Wolf 1985 with his mom at home. And he just keeps having like those weird goosebumps and his palms get sweaty and like his stomach drops and he doesn't know what these feelings mean. They must be the Mind Flayer, right? And Mike's like, oh my God, yeah, it's the Mind Flayer. Oh my God, Will. So he wakes up Lucas and Dustin and explains everything that Will just told him. And they're like, oh my God, he's back. He's after Will again. We need to protect our friend. So they start trying to figure out what's going on. But also it's very late, so we kind of fade to black.
Joyce and Hopper, both on the hood of this car now. Maybe they've been playing cards. They have not been having a good time. In the twilight. No, it's probably later than that. Up drives a van. We've got a Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated van. Front door swings open. It's Murray.
He leans out and says, you called? Cut to black, end of episode.
End of episode, oh thank God, okay.
Okay.
We open on Murray's van. Well, we open more specifically on Hopper, crammed into the middle seat in the row in the front of Murray's van. He is crammed between Murray in the driver's seat and Joyce in the passenger seat, not having a good time. Because he's never been in a car while Murray's driving, but he's quickly come to realize that Murray is not good at driving. Sometimes he just goes completely into the wrong side of the road and has to go back quickly before he gets in a head-on collision.
It's made more stressful because there's a lot of weird noises coming from behind them in the van, and Murray will not answer any questions about what the noises are, and he will not let Joyce or Hopper look into the back.
Additionally, he's talking to himself, not entirely in English, and every once in a while, a machine that is forming the wall between the cab of the truck and then the back just spits out a long stream of paper, and he just will grab it and then with both hands just kind of read it, laugh, and then throws it out the window before Hopper can look at it. To do this, he has to shove Hopper completely aside to grab the paper. They realize Murray never said he was driving them back to Indiana.
And it's taking much longer than it should to get to Indiana, so they don't really know where they're going right now.
They're about 60% sure there's someone kidnapped in the back of the van.
Cut to Jonathan, who's getting real into his investigative journalism. Gone to the library, he picked out a whole stack of random books so that he could slip one gay one in the middle, because he needs to do research. But you know, it's 1986 or 85 or whatever year it is. So you know, he doesn't want people to know what he's investigating. So he goes back to Hopper's cabin where he has set up a murder board.
He's taken all of their stuff off the wall and just thrown it onto the floor.
Yeah, so there's one picture of Photography Boy set in the middle, and then some little pieces of paper that say things like goosebumps, eye contact, hands, and dreams. He's looking like a rabid raccoon. He's investigating, he's trying to figure things out. He's not getting anywhere yet. He's working on it.
We cut back to the Wheelers' house. They are still questioning Will about the Mind Flayer and what he's been feeling.
Telling them about all the things of like goosebumps and sweaty palms and like stomach drops and how his brain just goes blank sometimes and he doesn't know how to explain it. And they're like, oh man, oh buddy, we're not gonna let it get you again. We need to figure out what he's up to this time.
Because they're smart, they can handle this, they've done it before.
They're 15 this time. The Mind Flayer's no match for them. They pull out.
And the power of friendship.
Yeah, the power of friendship.
It's a major theme.
Yeah, they pull out Will's sketchbook with all of his secret sketches that he's been doing, and they're like, ooh, maybe it's another thing, like the maze drawings and stuff. Let's put all your sketches together and see if they make a picture. So they lay out all of these sketches that are all little sketches of like individual body parts and like, ooh,
Real
like an eye and like a shoulder and like a hand and stuff. So they lay it all out and it makes one huge boy. And we as the audience recognize the boy from PE and they're like, oh, maybe this is his next victim or something. Will, do you recognize this boy? And he's like,
no, never seen him.
I don't know that boy. This is so crazy, guys. I don't know. Guess the Mind Flayer did it.
Dustin is well and truly freaked out at this point, but he's late for his hangout with his real best friend, Steve Harrington. So he says, good luck, guys. Hope the Mind Flayer doesn't get you while I'm gone. And then he books it. And we cut to the video store where Steve and Robin are working, because that's where they work. And they are having a very big argument about whether or not the movie they watched last night was better than the movie they watched the night before.
Indiana Jones 2.
Indiana Jones 2, the worst Indiana Jones movie, according to my boyfriend.
And Robin's like, no, that was such a terrible movie, Steve. It was really bad. There's no way it was better than whatever they watched last night. I don't know, Breakfast Club or something.
I didn't have the energy to think of another one.
Yeah, and Steve's like, no, Robin, you don't understand. Harrison Ford is like an artist. He's such a good actor. He's so amazing. Like when he's doing his whole performance, it's just like, wow, I get goosebumps watching it. And Robin's just like, okay, Steve, you just think he's hot. And Steve's like,
who hasn't had gay thoughts?
what? No. I mean, yeah, he's an attractive man, but
I
like,
think that how often he was shirtless just shows his dedication to the craft.
yeah. Dustin bursts in and is like, oh my god, you guys, I have to tell you something.
He's
and they're
real
like,
sweaty.
And Robin's like, oh, I have something to tell you. Haha, Steve has a crush on Harrison Ford. And Dustin's like, the Mind Flayer's back. Wait, Steve's gay? And they start to just have two very different conversations at full speed. So they're all yelling. And Dustin's like, yeah, the Mind Flayer's back, but oh my god, Steve likes men? And Robin's like, oh my god, the Mind Flayer's back? What's going on? And Steve's like, sometimes I get goosebumps when I watch him, my palms get sweaty and my stomach drops, okay? What about the Mind Flayer? And Dustin's like, goosebumps! And Dustin just screams, oh my god, the Mind Flayer is in Steve!
And Robin's like, okay, we need to pause. What?
And Dustin's like, okay, so Will's been having the same kind of feelings that Steve's been having. He has the goosebumps and the sweaty palms and his stomach drops and his brain goes blank, and it's because the Mind Flayer's after him. And Steve's like, oh my god.
I don't want the Mind Flayer after me.
Yeah, like that's how I feel. I don't want the Mind Flayer in me. And Robin's like, okay, That's not the only thing that could be making him feel those feelings, though. Like, you know, maybe if Steve just likes Harrison Ford and Dustin's like, no, it's the Mind Flayer, and Steve's like, yeah, it's the Mind Flayer, Robin. And they just ignore her. And then they just start talking about how, oh my god, the Mind Flayer's back and it's getting multiple people now. It's crazy.
They need to formulate a plan.
Yeah.
If Dustin had been later by like 5 minutes, Robin might have made some real progress with this.
Yeah, he did just kind of ruin it for her a little bit. And she's willing to just kind of sit back and let this happen for now, because she figures they gotta get to something eventually. She'll just let it happen. She knows that if she just tells them that Steve likes men, they're just gonna ignore her. So, you know, whatever. But back to the grown-ups, who are at the gas station. Hopper and Joyce are inside getting snacks because they have already gone through all of her mom purse snacks. They're having an argument because Hopper wants to get 2 fistfuls of Slim Jims.
Which fulfills Chloe's contractual obligation to mention Slim Jims in 51% or more of our videos.
And Joyce wants to get trail mix.
And neither of them can let the other one make an independent decision as an adult.
But then Murray pops in and is like, we gotta go now. And he's frantic. So they're like, oh my god, okay, whatever. So they toss some bills at the cashier, grab their snacks, run out to the car. They're trailing Slim Jims and nuts or whatever.
Raisins.
They hop into the van and Murray peels out like tire tracks on the ground. He's speeding and they're like, oh my god, Murray, what's happening? Why are we doing this? What's wrong? He will not answer any questions because he is too busy driving. He's like weaving in and out of cars, driving crazy, and they're freaking out and they're trying to yell at him and they're like screaming and going like, oh my god, you need to tell us what's happening right now. And he just says, I borrowed some equipment from the government. And they go, borrowed? And he goes, I didn't tell them I was borrowing it. They look behind them and see that there's government agents in cars trailing them, and they're like, oh shit, oh no.
We realize that his frantic driving in this part has been not him being bad at driving, it's entirely evasive maneuvers. We are on back roads, we are trying to disguise the Mystery Incorporated van. It's not painted like that, I don't know why I keep saying it. And eventually, through a lot of screaming, they get on a back road, they look around, the government men are gone.
And they're like, okay, Murray, you need to tell us what's going on, or else we're gonna turn you in or whatever. Like, you need to tell us. And he's like, okay. So they get out of the car, and he brings them around to the back, and he opens up the big doors, and it's just like this crazy mad science lab in there. There's all kinds of like beeping lights and machines and like weird things.
There's a cot that he's clearly been sleeping on for the past who knows how long, and just like his dirty clothes are spread out over the ground. Most importantly,
there's a giant vat of goo in which the tastefully posed and nude body of Alexei is floating. And they're like, Murray, what the fuck?
begins to explain sort of what's happening, but he's not being very clear. He's directing like half of his remarks to one of the machines and is acting like everyone in the room should already know half of this information. But we kind of figure out that they knew Alexei was probably going to die, they knew that the government had the technology to bring him back, and they knew this was their only chance.
Yeah, so like last season, when they were all in the car and he and Alexei would be talking in Russian in the back,
We get a flashback.
they kind of made this whole plan of like, okay, Alexei will probably die. When he does, here's what you need to do. And Murray was like, yeah, okay, we're ride or die for each other now. Like, yeah, I'll do this. And so after the events of season 3, he went back to Alexei's body and took his glasses off of him and tucked them in his shirt pocket, where they still are now, as they have been so far. And he went and stole a bunch of lab equipment from the government and started regrowing Alexei's body.
That's what he's been doing for the past 8 or so months.
Hopper points to the machine that keeps spitting out paper and goes, okay, so what's that? A paper comes out. Murray picks it up, looks at it, and smiles, hands it to Hopper. We see the paper now, and it's in Russian, but there's a translation on it, and it says, it's Alexei, with a little smiley face, and Hopper just goes, oh.
Joyce is just like, yeah,
Yeah, this checks out. This
Cool.
makes sense to me.
glad it's not a kidnapped person.
End
Well.
of episode. Cut to black. We open on Jonathan in the cabin. He is surrounded by just like energy drinks and Slim Jims. He looks like he's been awake for like weeks. He has not showered or slept. He's looking rough. But he has all of his like research spread around him. His murder board is growing. Lawrence of Arabia is playing on the TV. There's a knock at the door and he's surprised. Is it another raccoon? Let's go see. He opens the door. Photography boy is leaning on the porch.
In another gay little outfit.
And Jonathan's like, photography boy? What are you doing here? And photography boy's like, I came to see you. And he's like, what? What do you mean? And he says, I wanted to see you. And Jonathan's like, oh, what's going on here? Photography boy comes inside and they sit on the little couch and he's like, yeah, I couldn't stop thinking about you. I kept just pulling out your picture to look at it. And Jonathan's like, oh, I do that too. They keep getting closer and they talk for a little bit. Their hands touch. Neither of them pulls away. They lean in and they kiss. And Jonathan's like, oh man, what's happening? But he keeps kissing him. The boy whispers his name. Jonathan pulls back and is suddenly terrified by the sight of the Mind Flayer in a gay little outfit, pointing and laughing at him as evil music swells in the background. Ha 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 ha.
Ha ha, he laughs.
And Jonathan's like, and scrambles back, suddenly wakes up in a cold sweat, shaking like a purse dog. This is not the first dream of this nature that he's had, but he's still shaken by it.
The whole thing will be shot is an elaborate reference to the greatest movie of all time, which is Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge.
Yeah.
We cut to the video store. Dustin is waiting outside for Steve and Robin to get there to open. He is bouncing on his toes. He's got a backpack just bursting with things, and he's brought a sack lunch. Steve and Robin get there. They start unlocking the door. They're like, what's up, buddy? We weren't scheduled to hang out today. And he's like, well, I thought about it. And I think that before we get really freaked out that it's the Mind Flayer, and Robin's like, yeah, yeah, we should use the scientific method to prove that it's really the Mind Flayer that's making you kind of gay. And Robin's like, okay.
Something could come
We
of
might
this.
prove a negative here, it's fine.
And Steve's like, yeah, okay. Anything to help get the Mind Flayer out of me. Let's
Anything
do
to
it.
prove that Robin is wrong.
So they go inside. Robin is manning the cash register and everything. Dustin brings Steve in the back, ties him to a chair, and starts pulling things out of his backpack.
We go through a very good montage of Dustin holding up various images, magazine clippings, hand-drawn pictures to Steve, and has Steve rate them 1 out of 10 on how they make him feel. We see this very intense sequence as Steve tries to give the most honest answer he can, like he's getting a new prescription at the eye doctor. And we see images of, like, comic book women in bikinis with very large lasers, and monster trucks, and little purses,
Little jazzercise outfits.
a sweaty basketball player.
Picture of David Bowie. The centerfold of Playgirl. He's holding them all up, so he'll go like, okay. Balloon animal.
2,
Molly Ringwald.
7,
Super ripped comic book dude.
also 7.
Yeah, so they're just kind of going through all of these, and Steve's giving such earnest answers.
Dustin is marking each one down on the clipboard he has brought.
At one point, the manager pops in while he's holding up different DVD covers.
Nope, because it's 1986.
At one point, the manager pops in to see why Steve hasn't been stalking the horror movies and sees Dustin holding up different VHS covers for him and just kind of goes, okay, and just kind of walks back out.
He doesn't know how to deal with a teen tying up his employee in the back room. And he doesn't want to know how to deal with it.
Yeah. Then later on, Robin, who's joined them, Dustin has been holding up pictures from Steve's graduating class's yearbook. And so he's holding up a picture of Nancy. And Steve's just like, no, I don't want to answer that one. They're like, no, you have to. Give her a rating. And he's just like, 6. And they're like, okay, sure. And he writes it down. And then he holds up a picture of Robin, because Dustin is still not picking up on the vibes at all, and still thinks that they're in love, maybe. And so he holds it up, and they're like, ooh, yeah, Steve, what is it? And he's like, I don't want to answer that one. And Robin's like, no, Steve, you have to answer. What is it?
For science.
And he's just like,
don't you want to know if you're gay?
And he's just like, I'm not gonna do that one. He just refuses.
And they boo him, and Dustin writes this down as a data point. We cut back to grown-up road trip. Not a lot is happening. We hear a little bit more about the backstory, how Murray stole all this equipment, how long he's been on the road, the fact that we're really close to Alexi's body being full grown, at which point they can transfer his consciousness out of the computer back into his body, and he'll just be alive again. Hopper is not picking up on the vibes.
Yeah, he's very confused, and he's very much like, okay, so why are you regrowing this man? Like, why this man specifically?
Isn't he an enemy of the American government?
And Joyce is just kind of like,
I see what's happening.
like, she understands.
She has 2 sons who are both like this. So that's what happens in that.
So we cut back to the boys, who are still just kind of investigating, trying to figure stuff out.
Whatever they're normally doing in episode 4.
Maybe they start kind of going around town, seeing if there's any evidence of like other weird things happening around town. And there's like a little bit of an homage to Fright Night, where they're kind of seeing things that are very clearly gay to the audience. And they're going, oh man, that's weird and spooky. Those 2 men live together and they only have 1 bed. That must be because one of them's the Mind Flayer and he doesn't sleep because he's evil and bad. And as an audience, we're like, oh buddy, oh no. So that's kind of what they're doing. So Jonathan goes to the video store because he has to return all of the gay movies that he rented yesterday. So he goes and he just drops this huge stack. He's looking so terrible. He looks like a rat that's about to explode, and Robin is still manning the cash register, so she's just kind of like watching him as he slinks around the store and just grabs any movie that has 2 men on the cover, because he doesn't know what gay movies are. He's just kind of guessing. He goes up to the counter and just kind of drops this huge stack, and she's just like, hey Jonathan, didn't know you were back in town. And he's just like non-responsive. She's going through every single VHS and just kind of looking at them, and she sees the common denominator here, and she's just kind of looking at him like, yeah, that's a good movie. Dustin pops out and goes, hey Robin, do you have a copy of Rocky Horror I can show Steve? And she goes, no, Jonathan's checking that out actually. Jonathan
just like waiting to fall through the floor.
Dustin looks up at him and goes, oh, are you researching how the Mind Flayer can make people gay too? And Jonathan goes, the Mind Flayer can make people gay? And Dustin goes, yeah, happened to Steve. Pops back in. Jonathan looks at Robin and is like, and Robin's like, oh yeah, it's true, it happened to me last summer. And he's just like, oh God. And he grabs his movies and just shuffles back out, and she watches him and goes, I think there's something seriously wrong with that rat.
She may have done some damage here.
End of episode! Chapter 5. So Jonathan is still investigating. He's just kind of slinking around town. He's following people a lot.
Anything that he thinks is gay, he's latching onto, which means that it ends up being a lot like last season where they accidentally followed the jazzercise Russian. He learned about flagging from his book and accidentally ends up wasting an afternoon following a group of Boy Scouts.
He's like hiding in bushes. He's trying to find cruising spots. He's watching men interact at the grocery store. He's not subtle at all in his sleuthing, and nobody in town likes it. So Robin, Steve, and Dustin are at Robin's parents' house. They're doing more investigations. Dustin has decided that Steve needs to try walking a mile in a gay man's shoes. Literally. They're playing dress up and trying to put him in the gayest outfits they can possibly think of. They put him in his Scoops Ahoy uniform. They dress him up like a leather daddy. They give him like little booty shorts.
They find Robin's 8th grade graduation dress.
Yeah, because that's the fanciest dress that she's bought in the last 10 years. Start putting on makeup and glitter.
They've all got glitter on.
Yeah, Steve and Robin do each other's makeup, and then Dustin kind of feels a little bit left out, so they pull him over and put some glitter on him, and it's fun. Robin's parents come in.
We have fan cast as Bert Hummel and Carol Hudson. From Glee.
Not the actors, the characters.
They are not legally distinct.
Oh, they're not legally distinct in any way. Her mom was like, oh yeah, you guys can use some of my jewelry and my makeup and stuff. This is fun.
And they realize, well, they have to pierce Steve's ears.
Yeah.
But none of them know how to do that, so they call Erica.
So she comes over and she's like, hey, what are you guys doing? Why is this all happening? And they decide that they need to explain it to her in ways that she would understand. So they're like, hey, Erica, you know how some people like Care Bears and some people like My Little Pony? We're trying to figure out which way Steve swings. And she goes, oh, you're trying to find out if he's gay or not? And they go, yes. And she's like, okay, so you gotta do the left ear. And so they pierce his ear.
No, you don't.
No, so they pierce his left ear, and then they go, wait, actually, I think it's the right one. So then they have to pierce his other ear, too. Robin's mom gives them some earrings for him to wear.
He cries a little bit when she stabs him with this needle, and she says something kind of homophobic about it.
Yeah. So road trip. They're still just evading the government. Sometimes they'll stop at like a rest stop or something, and then have to run away real fast.
It seems like there's more and more government guys chasing them each time, and it's always a closer call. The whole time they keep stopping. Joyce has coins again, because they bought Slim Jims, and she's trying to call the Wheeler's house every single time to just check in on her son. How is her boy doing?
But she can't get through because Nancy is clogging all the phone lines making business calls.
It's building to a point of tension.
Steve and Jonathan run into each other because Steve had to go outside to bring the trash out because he does chores. That's part of the deal of him staying at Robin's parents' house.
He's still covered in glitter, real short shorts.
And Jonathan has heard that the Mind Flayer was making him gay. So he's like, oh, it's true. Hey, Steve. How you been doing lately? And they have a whole conversation where both of them think the other is trying to find out if they're gay, but they're not gay. So it's very much that scene in Malcolm in the Middle where they're both talking about how they're gay.
You like something I liked.
Right. Plus, it wouldn't work anyway. People can't help what they like. That's just the way they're born.
I know. Like me. I've never liked ham.
Really? Because maybe if you tried it...
No. But that's me. I'm not putting it down or anything.
I hear you. There's no right sandwich.
Cut back to the kids again. It's another sleepover, this time just with Lucas, Mike, and Will.
They called Dustin, but he was busy.
Yeah, he was busy, which is valid of him. And so it's late at night.
Wait. They couldn't call him. Nancy's on the phone.
Yeah, they couldn't call him. Nancy's on the phone. So it's like the middle of the night, everyone's asleep. But Mike wakes up to see Will trying to sneak out with a little knapsack packed, and he's like, hey, where are you going? And Will explains that he thinks he needs to run away because he feels like he's putting everyone in danger just by being there, and after so many people died last summer, he doesn't want to cause any more harm in Hawkins, so he's just gonna run away, and then he's gonna live in the woods alone until the day the Mind Flayer comes to find and kill him. Or until his mom comes back, whichever comes first. And Mike's like, no, that's crazy. But if you're gonna do that, we'll come with you. So he wakes up Lucas and they're like, all right, we're gonna run away together and live in the woods until we die, maybe.
Or until Will's mom comes back.
End of episode. Chapter 6, Babes in the Woods. We do an homage to Riverdale doing an homage to Stand By Me. So we get the kids running around the woods, trying to make fires, trying to make shelter and everything.
They're not good at it.
Yeah, they're not that good at it, but it's fine. So Jonathan has still been slinking around town. He has now latched on to one main suspect, and it is
Mr. Clark.
Mr. Clark. And Mr. Clark is fully aware of this. And he's just kind of been like, oh, Jonathan. Eventually he just like fully catches him and is like, hey, Jonathan, why don't you come inside and I'll make you some coffee.
You look like you need it.
So they sit down together and Mr. Clark's like, hey, you know, you don't have to follow people who are gay. It's fine. We're just like everyone else. You don't gotta do that. It's fine. And Jonathan's like, no, Mr. Clark, you don't understand. There's something nefarious happening that's making everyone like this. And he's like, no, it's okay. It's fine. And he kind of tries to talk to him and have like a heart-to-heart with him. But Jonathan is just too caught up in everything else that's happening for it to really sink in at all. Neither of them is satisfied with this conversation they've had.
It is Steve and Robin's day off. So they continue to run more gay tests in Robin's parents' garage. Maybe they're watching some gay movies. Maybe they're doing more makeup. They're hanging out. They're talking about gay celebrities that they know. And about every half hour they are ordering a pizza so that Dustin can gauge Steve's reaction to blonde KJ Appa.
Towards the end of the day, he corners KJ Appa outside, away from Robin and Steve, and goes, okay, here's the deal. Tomorrow we're gonna order more pizza. I will give you $20.
That's too much money for the year.
I will give you $20 for the pizza and you can keep the change if you just lay a big smackaroonie on Steve. And no grandma kisses, I'll be watching. It can't be a peck. Gotta do full-on kiss.
And KJ Appa, who we have decided to give one line and pay him for.
Fuck it, I'm working on tips anyway, sure, I'll do it.
It's his one line.
And Dustin's like, no grandma kisses, okay? I'll be watching. It can't be a peck, it's gotta be a full-on kiss. And KJ Appa's like, yeah, fine, okay, I'll do it. So, Jonathan goes home to watch Rocky Horror and cry, probably.
We cut back and forth from this to the grown-up road trip. Joyce has finally managed to get through to the Wheeler house because Nancy has taken today to go door to door doing her pyramid scheme instead of hogging the phone. So Joyce gets through. It's great because it's been a couple days and she's like, hi, Karen, can I talk to my son? Karen's like, oh, well, he's not around.
Yeah, and Joyce is like, okay, well, like, where is he? And she's like, I don't know, they're kids, they're off doing something. And Joyce is like, okay, when was the last time you saw him, though? And she goes, well, he was definitely here when you dropped him off. After that, I'm not sure. And Joyce is like, Karen, please, I need to know where my son is. This is very important. He was missing for a while. It's very stressful for me to not know where he is. And Karen's like, okay,
I'll check.
Yeah.
Hey, Ted, do you know where Mike and Will are? And
Will's in town?
And Joyce just hangs up. She gets out another coin. She calls Max's house. She is in a panic. She's like, hello, Max's mom, who has a name. Can I speak to my child?
And she's like, yeah, she just went in Max's room just right now. I'll go get her. And Joyce is just like, oh, thank God. Okay, we got one down.
We got the bigger flight risk accounted for. We are good. But now they have to hurry up and get back to Indiana because her son is missing.
And she's like, okay, Murray, you said Alexi's body was almost ready. Like, how almost ready is it? Like, can we hurry this up? And it comes out that Alexi's body has actually been ready for weeks. He's just been too afraid to do it.
Because he thinks the transfer might not go right. And it's better to have Alexi in a computer than no Alexi at all. This is understandable. But her son is missing.
Yeah. So she's like, okay, you gotta just like buckle up and do it, buddy. And then they kind of have like a heart-to-heart where she's like, yeah, you know, like, I was really in love with Bob, and like the idea of like not having him around was like very scary at first, but like, you know, I'm glad that I had the time with him that I had, and like sometimes you have to take that risk in order to get the reward.
And him in a computer and you running around in a van isn't a life that you guys can have together.
Yeah, like if you just like do this, you guys could just be happy together and you could live together and it would be so good for everyone. You know what other time I experienced loss? When my son went missing. He's missing right now. We need to go home. And he's like, yeah, you're right, I'm sorry. He also like talks to like computer Alexi a little bit, and computer Alexi's like, yeah, like I know that you have been putting this off, and I was okay with that because I know it's been so scary for you, but yeah, like it's time for this to happen. He's like, okay. So then,
Front seat of the car, Joyce and Hopper are both sitting there, and we hear in real time Murray in the back of the van, and he drags something heavy, and then he climbs on top of it. We hear a popping sound, like he's taking the lid off something. We hear like a splorch as he reaches into the vat. We hear his cries of, oh, slippery, as he tries to pull Alexi's body out. He drops Alexi's body, he pulls it back up again. He has to like haul his legs over the edge of the vat. Ooh, ooh. He drops him down on the cot.
it's like a wet splat.
We hear it all in real time.
As Joyce and Hopper just kind of sit there
Eating trail mix.
and Slim Jims.
But they're each eating each other's ones now because they're friends.
Yeah, they're friends. It's cute. And then we cut back and forth between Jonathan, who has fallen asleep watching Rocky Horror, and it's the scene where Frankenfurter is in the lab explaining how he made a man, and we intersperse that with Murray readying Alexi's body to have his consciousness put back in.
The goop has been cleaned off of him. He's been put into good clothes. His hair is combed. He's laid out on the cot that we assume Murray has been using. Everything's ready. He has Joyce come back into the back of the van with him, and Hopper is not allowed to do this part, so he assumes something nefarious is happening. We cut back and forth between, in just 7 days, I can make you a man. Bubbling. And this much more quiet, tense scene as he takes all of these wires from the computer and electrodes, and it's very sci-fi, and we don't focus too much on what his hands are doing. And he plugs Alexi in, and he starts up a computer program. Joyce is like, okay, you're ready for this. You can do this. And he's like, yeah. Okay. And he flips the switch, and everything looks like it's going fine for a second. And then the computer that Alexi is in starts going haywire. Like, every light is going off at once. There is a screeching sound because of how many beeps are happening all at once. The bit that spits out his printer paper is just spitting out an endless row of blank paper. Everything is very, very bad. And they can't pull the plug, but this is not good.
Then suddenly, the power shuts off. Everything goes black.
We cut back, I think, to Jonathan in front of the TV. End of episode. It's the next day. We're still with the adults on their road trip. Hopper is now driving with Joyce in the front, while Murray sits in the back, awkwardly perched on a stool by the still unconscious body of Alexi. We see that he's breathing slightly, but there's no other signs of movement. He hasn't moved or woken up since the transfer kind of got interrupted last night. He's alive, but they don't know how much brain activity he has or if he's ever gonna wake up. So Murray's just waiting.
He's just been like sitting at his bedside holding his hand.
Yeah. And we cut back and forth between this and Joyce and Hopper in the front as they spot government agents. Oh no.
Oh no.
So Hopper kicks the car into a different gear. Is that how that works?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. And
You're not on T yet.
I'm not
you don't
on-
have to know.
Okay. Takes off. In the back, we see Murray go flying off the stool that he's on because he was not prepared for this and he didn't brace himself. Alexi's body slumps off of the cot too, and they both fall to the floor. Joyce in the front tries to yell through the back like, hey, you okay in there? And there's no response, because as they continue driving with the evasive maneuvers, in the back, Murray sits up, he adjusts his glasses, he's looking around, and this jolt has also awoken Alexi, who is also sitting up and trying to look around, but he can't because his glasses are not on his face, and Murray just very quietly reaches into his pocket and takes out the glasses that he's been carrying all season and also for the past 8 months or so, and very gently puts them on Alexi's face. And his hands stay holding his face, and they just look at each other, and then they kiss.
And then they kiss.
And it's their first kiss. And I start crying. Back in the front, they've gotten somewhere. They have evaded the government, and Joyce is very worried because she didn't hear anyone confirm in the back that anyone is alive. So she's like, okay, all right, and she hops out of the van and she goes around to the back and she throws open the door and they're just kissing, and she's like, oh, okay, I see what happened. Great, glad he's up. And Hopper comes back around. She's like, what? What? He did not pick up on the vibes. He did not understand that this was the relationship at all. And they pull apart, and Murray might be about to say something, but Alexei turns to him and says something in Russian that will remain untranslated. And Murray's just like, oh, yeah, good idea. And then he slams the door shut. And Hopper, who is still piecing things together, throws the door back open, sees something, slams it shut again, sits down on the ground.
And then Joyce is like, hey bud, we're gonna have a talk now. So she kind of leads him away, and she explains that sometimes people are gay.
And right now, people are being gay in the back of their escape van. And they have 20 minutes before she starts driving because her son is missing.
Yeah, he's missing.
But also she understands and appreciates the power of gay love.
So Steve and Robin are working again, and because his other friends are somewhere in the woods and not answering the walkie-talkie, Dustin's hanging with them again. Steve is feeling sexy and flirty and confident with his new look. He's got like traces of eyeliner and glitter still on him and a 50-year-old woman's earring. He's feeling real good about himself. And so Dustin is trying to like observe him interacting with customers now, to see if the way he interacts with men is changing at all. And Steve keeps just kind of forgetting that they're still doing gay tests, and so he's just like having fun flirting with men. Groundskeeper Derek Hale, who's legally distinct from Derek Hale.
This is Herrick Dale.
Herrick Bale.
Sure.
Groundskeeper Derek Bale, who's legally distinct from Derek Hale, comes in, and Steve's like, ooh, yeah, a cool, hot man. Ooh, you want to get American Werewolf in London or whatever?
Out.
I don't know if it's out. If it's out, it's that one. And he's like, yeah, cool, that's a good flick.
Teen Wolf 1985!
It's Teen Wolf 1985.
As we mentioned that earlier, that's a very gay movie. We know about that.
Yeah, okay.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, we have to watch it. He turns into a wolf while he's playing basketball. Fun and
Doesn't he ride on top of a car in Wolf Form?
Yeah, it's a really good flick. We should watch it. So Steve's feeling fun and flirty and confident, and so he's just like, yeah, loving men. And then Dustin comes up as soon as groundskeeper Herrick Bale leaves and is like, okay, 1 to 10, how'd that make you feel? And Steve's like, oh, yeah, I forgot we were doing that. Honestly, like a 9. And Robin's just like, sure. The boys are in the woods. They're playing D&D.
To pass the time and make Will less stressed.
Yeah, because they're like, okay, lots of emotions running, let's just play D&D, it'll calm us down a little.
Wait for your mom to get back.
So Mike is the dungeon master. He's like leading this whole campaign and stuff. It gets to a part where there's a sexy elf man who Will has to interact with. And like, as part of the campaign, he's getting a little flirty with him.
That's just how elves in D&D are.
And Will's just like, I don't know, and he's like getting kind of weird about it, and Mike's like, he goes closer to you, and Will's like, maybe I step back a little, and Mike's like, no, he gets closer, takes your hand, and Will's like, Mike, maybe you should stop. And Mike's like, he gently cradles your face. And Will's just like, guys, you need to stop. The Mind Flayer's here again. And they're like,
Lucas is like, oh shit.
Yeah, Lucas jumps up, pulls out his wrist rocket, and he's like looking around at the bushes like, oh no, where is he? And Mike's like, he keeps holding your face. He looks as deep into your eyes, and Will's just like, Mike, you need to stop right now. The Mind Flayer's here. And Lucas is just like, oh shit, oh god. And they hear rustling in the bushes, and he's like, and he like shoots. And a beautiful doe comes out, and they're like,
And Will just starts crying.
Yeah. And Lucas is like, what's going on? And Mike's just like, Will, I don't think it's been the Mind Flayer. I don't think he's back. And Will's just like, no, I think it's the Mind Flayer, I think he's back. And Lucas is like, I don't know what's happening. And Mike's kind of putting together like,
He's not quite there.
But he's kind of like, I think there's something different going on here. And Will runs into the forest. He just runs away. He just
crying.
Yeah, he's just crying and he's running. And Lucas and Mike are just like, well, fuck it. Okay, we gotta go after him. So they run after him, trying to find him. Back to Steve's garage. They ordered pizza again. Blonde KJ Appa's here.
Dustin is so excited for what's about to happen.
Yeah, it's happening.
He's holding up the 20, like just making eye contact.
Just like, yeah, come on, buddy, come on. So Steve is like, oh, cool, pizza, takes it.
And in a way that mirrors both Murray and Alexi's kiss and the way that the elf was holding on to Will's face, just grabs him.
And just plants one on him and pulls back, and Steve's just like, and Dustin's just like, okay, 1 to 10, how'd it make you feel? How was it, Steve? How was it? Do you feel gay? And Steve's just like, and Robin's like, Dustin, why did you do this? And Steve's just like, Everyone's looking at him and it's too much for him and it's stressful. He drops the pizza and runs out onto the street. Dustin and Robin are calling after him and they're like, oh my god, Steve, you don't have your shoes or your keys. Where are you going? It's late at night. And he just keeps running. And KJ Appa's just like, okay, can I have the 20 now? I did it. And they're just like, yeah, please leave. So they have to go after Steve and find him.
We cut to Hopper's cabin. Nancy has arrived at Hopper's cabin selling her pyramid scheme. So she and Jonathan, by the time we get there, have been having an uncomfortable conversation for a few minutes at least. Steve, who is still frantic, bursts in because he thinks maybe this place will be abandoned. And the sight of both of them after kissing this man is just too much for him, and he just falls to the floor.
Yeah, he just has to lie down for a minute.
And they all start yelling at each other.
Suddenly, Will bursts through the door, and he's very surprised because he just assumed that this cabin would be abandoned. Everyone has been assuming that this cabin would be abandoned, but Jonathan's squatting there like a rabid raccoon.
Will is still crying.
Yeah, and Jonathan's like, Will? What are you doing in town? And Will's like, Jonathan, what are you doing in town? And Steve's like, oh, neither of you knew? Oh. And then Nancy starts yelling at him.
During that, Robin and Dustin burst in. And then
Mike and Lucas burst in.
So we're all together.
Yeah, everyone's just here now.
And then we get to, again, maybe the best scene.
Everybody is screaming at each other.
So we cut to the middle of this argument.
So Robin's like, Steve, it's okay if you like kissing men. Lots of people do.
And Nancy's like, Steve, you always used to kiss Tommy H every time we went to a party, and you got too drunk, and I never told anyone about it because you asked me not to, and I was a good girlfriend.
And Dustin's like, Nancy, you got my mom sucked into a pyramid scheme.
And Lucas is like, my mom too.
And Mike's like, mine too.
And Robin's like, mine too.
And Steve's like, Nancy came to our house?
And Nancy's like, you live together?
And Robin's like, my parents think he's an at-risk gay teen.
So Steve's like, they what? Why do they think that?
And Robin's like, they met you. Why do you think they let you live in her garage for free?
And then Mike, to redirect the argument, says, Nancy couldn't read until she was 8.
And Nancy's like, at least I'm not creeping around in the bushes like a rabid raccoon taking stalker pictures of everyone.
And Jonathan goes, at least I don't hang out with children.
And Steve's like, he's 15.
And Dustin's like, I'm 15.
And Lucas yells, Mike made Will cry.
And Mike says, Steve likes to hold hands during sex, because Mike's not too clear on what the argument's about.
And Steve's like, you told him?
And Nancy goes, no!
And Mike yells, she told everybody.
And Nancy says, Mike went to bed until he was 11.
And Jonathan yells, Nancy made me sleep in my car.
And Mike yells, why are you even here?
And Jonathan yells, why is Will even here?
And Will starts to cry again. And then Mike points and is like, Jonathan made him cry. Jonathan made him cry.
And Jonathan's like, the Mind Flayer made Steve gay.
And Nancy goes, well, what's your excuse?
And Robin's like, sometimes people are just gay.
And Lucas, who has pieced it all together, goes, I think Will's gay.
And Jonathan yells, of course Will's gay.
And Will just goes, what? And starts crying again.
And Dustin says, wait, is everybody gay? And then Steve, Jonathan, and Will in unison yell, I'm not gay, the Mind Flayer's gay.
And this is the moment where Joyce walks into the cabin.
And Hopper goes, oh god, everyone's gay now.
And Joyce just goes, okay, let's back up a minute. And that's the end of the episode.
End of episode. So we open on the feelings circle that Joyce has made them all form. They are all sitting on the floor, cross-legged in a circle. She has Will just kind of swaddled like a burrito.
Under her arm, kind of in her lap. He stopped crying, but he still looks real bad.
He's having a time.
So she makes them all go around the circle and just kind of recap how their week's been going. And everyone is forced to admit that they've been doing some pretty gay things.
So she explains to them that there is nothing nefarious going on. They're just gay and it's fine. And Steve says, I'm just gay? And Robin says, give you like a 4 on the Kinsey scale.
Because we love a bisexual man and it's fine.
Yeah.
But that wasn't his story this season.
Joyce is very gentle and she answers all of their questions.
Jonathan's still having a rough time with it. About halfway through this, there's a commotion outside. And Joyce is like, okay, hang on. She lifts her burrito son and lays him down on the floor, and she gets up. And she goes outside. Murray and Alexi, who were kissing in the van, are just being held at gunpoint by some government agents who have finally caught up to them. Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, everyone else kind of files out of the cabin to see all of this, and Murray, Joyce, and Hopper start trying to reason with the government officials of like, hey, you can like keep all the equipment, we're done with it, just like let us be, like
go.
it's fine.
They do not like this idea.
They are threatening to shoot Alexi along with everyone else to cover up that they can regrow people, because it's secrets.
Most of the kids start crying at this point.
Yeah, everyone is very afraid until suddenly one of the men's neck just snaps. And they all look over to see Elle with a little trickle of blood coming out of her nose, holding hands with Max.
She has popped his head like a grape. They also thought the cabin would be unoccupied.
Yeah, but she saw all of her friends being threatened and she did not hesitate.
Joyce is like, hi, Elle, how's your week been going?
And she's like, good, who are all these guys? And they're like, it's the government again. And the government people now realize that they have a very powerful girl with them. And so maybe they should just kind of leave it all alone. And they're like, okay, just give us the van and everything, we'll leave. So everything's just kind of...
It's over. It's the last episode, it's fine.
It's fine, it's wrapped up. Everything's good now, it's chill. They all go back inside.
They're like, hey Elle, do you want to share how your week went? It's pretty good. I learned how to skateboard.
Me and Max are girlfriends now, and they're all like, oh, good for you.
And Hopper's like standing there like waiting for a hug, and she does not give him one. And they start to go back into her room, and he's like, hello? Do you remember me at all? And she's like, oh yeah, hi. And then they go back into her room to kiss probably.
Everyone's very happy for them.
They knew what was going on this week. It's fine. We cut to
3 months later. It's the last day of school before summer break.
for all of them. It's standardized.
Yeah, it's standardized. Robin is graduating, and we are all so proud of her, but not as proud as Steve is. He's so excited. He's acting like a very embarrassing soccer mom.
He's got like the windows of his car painted in balloons trailing from it. She's
John-
kind of into it.
Yeah. She pretends to be very annoyed by it, but she thinks it's kind of sweet. Jonathan is picking up his photography final, and photography boy asks if he's coming to the end of the year party, and he's like, no, I've got plans with my family. Photography boy is disappointed and says maybe they should do something together some other time. You know, maybe just the two of them. And Jonathan's like, oh, because he's still kind of getting used to the concept of liking men. Photography boy hands him a slip of paper with his phone number on it, and he's like, yeah, call me anytime over the summer. And Jonathan's like, yeah, I'll do that. We get kind of a nod back to the beginning, with Joyce picking up Elle and Will, and like all of the girls being super sad to say bye to Elle. But now Will has a couple friends, and like, they're also sad to say bye to him, but he's still excited to go home and see his other friends. So Joyce and Hopper have rented a little van so that they can pile Elle, Will, Max, Lucas, Dustin, Steve, Robin in her graduation cap, Jonathan, Nancy, Murray, Alexi, and Mr. Clark all in at once. They drive to the nearest gay bar, which is several hours away. When they go in, They're all like, ooh, wow, this is so cool and exciting. It's a place for people like us.
The children get to go in because Joyce called ahead and said it was an educational field trip.
Yeah,
and
field trip rules.
And they went, okay.
So they all file in, and it's like a cool gay club. There's music playing, lots of people around. They look over to the bar, though, and they
Who's
go,
there?
huh, it's the Mind Flayer, sitting there in a gay little outfit, talking to another man. He turns very slowly around, looks at all of them, nods, gives them a little wink, turns back around, because this entire time, the Mind Flayer has been gay, just fully separate from everyone else being
Yeah,
gay.
it has nothing to do with the rest of it. Everyone was just independently gay.
And then everybody goes to the dance floor and they dance around together and have a real fun time. End of the show.
That's it!
Wow, gang, what a crazy spring break we had. It was just like an episode of the Brady Bunch.
That's it. There's no season 5. With this masterpiece, society has progressed past the need for more Stranger Things.
Until Chloe's Christmas special, coming to the Hallmark Channel this holiday season.
Like, comment, and subscribe for more hyperfixations and glorified fanfiction.
Bedtime,
Baby!
Okay, it's Chloe's turn. Okay. It's Chloe's deleted scenes. Okay, so. Okay, so back when they were all on the run, they stopped at an amusement park. And Murray was like, oh man, I really want to have a fun date with my boyfriend, even if he's a computer. So they all filed out of the van, and he took like a huge like AV cart with this whole computer system and stuff. He wrapped a giant extension cable around his torso so that they could just walk around and go on little rides together. And he got like cotton candy for him to share with his computer boyfriend. Joyce and Hopper think it's real weird and they don't want to be a part of it. And he's just like, wow, my love, isn't this such a nice time that we're having together? They get asked to leave. It's Disneyland.
It's not.
They're at Disneyland.
Disneyland!
They drove all the way to Disneyland so that they could have a romantic date together, and they go to Disneyland and it's fun, and they get ears and they put ears on the computer man. And that's it.
One mic for ASMR. And then Chloe's dad was like, yeah, why are you guys even upstairs in the barn? And I'm like, well, I live there, sir.